Welcome to Sports, Clicks, and Politics with your hosts, Ben Hussong and me, Shawn Hannon. Welcome to episode 112 of Sports, Clicks, and Politics. For those of you viewing at home, got a couple extra sound-free minutes of our show. Technical error on my part. Good thing I had the mute on.
Do you remember the R&B group 112?
No.
They were like a 90s R&B group.
Wasn't everybody in the 90s have some kind of color or number in their name?
I think so, yeah. But it was, I remember, 112. They did, I don't remember any of their songs, but I know there was a group called 112.
Sounds like you made it up.
I swear to God, I don't think I did.
Welcome, everybody, here to Pop Culture Ben Hussong style of 112. Is that what it was?
We're looking it up.
All right. Well, while Ben looks up hip-hop artist 112, I will let you guys do your obligatory helping the show and like and share the video. It helps us get the show out there to the peoples and helps us with the algorithm. Ben seems enlightened.
Thank you. Peaches and Cream. That was a song. Only You, Cupid. It's Over Now.
Well, maybe we'll get them to do our next opening theme song.
Do you
realize
still active? Over the weekend, I remembered that there was a song by WWIII Jean featuring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson called "It Doesn't Matter," and the entire song is WWIII Jean talking about things of normal hip-hop culture, and The Rock screaming, "It doesn't matter." It's the entire song. That song was actually in existence in the 1990s. It was a wild time for music, man.
I missed that channel.
Sorry.
Thankfully, I guess. But
it popped into my head over the weekend, and I couldn't oh, my God, that song really did exist. That's a thing.
Yeah, crazy. Well, not as crazy as the world, I feel like. We're going to get into some of that at the end of the show here. This is a jam-packed show because we missed last week because of me. And now I feel like I have to touch on everything that we missed over a week. So we got a lot of, not going to be 2 hours.
Okay, we're going to keep it under 2.
We're going to try to keep it under 2 hours. For those at home, you can fast forward to the parts that you like, I feel like. So, but other than discovering WWIII Jean and The Rock, how was your weekend?
My weekend was good. It was a little wild. Just, running around, coached soccer, watched my other daughter's soccer, did a baseball practice, watched some football, did some farming type duties around the house because it's what we do now. So it was good. Great weekend. No
How are the chickens?
Getting big.
Or whatever they're called.
Stink, man.
Are they stink?
Oh, they're terrible.
So they should be outside, you're saying?
They're getting. We can't put them outside yet. They still need to stay under the heat light. But man, do we need to get these things outside ASAP? Which means I got to go pick up more pallets and build this enclosure so that we're ready to go and put them outside ASAP.
I did see next weekend's going to be like 70, so
I saw that.
Yeah.
Good day for ice cream for those of you in the Corvallis area.
Maybe one last chance.
That's a great day.
Do you guys do the seasonal close down of the shop there? Not getting into the business aspect.
That's all right. We'll be open until just after Thanksgiving. That Saturday will be our last day after Thanksgiving.
Cranberry and stuffing ice cream.
I mean, we'll do ice cream pies in the lead up to Thanksgiving, and then we'll do hot chocolate and that kind of stuff.
I'm sure Halloween maybe has a little bit of do you have some kids overlap there?
We'll do some Halloween party stuff, next weekend. We got that going on with the costumes. And then after that, we'll shut it down for, probably about 6, maybe 8 weeks, and then reopen either in January or February, a couple days a week. So we got a plan.
Yeah, nice. Very good. Plan. Yeah. Yeah. Events kind of trickle out in my neck of the woods, too, this time of year. Well, we got a little bit of holiday parties, but there's not much going on because we do a lot of outdoor events. And as today is a wonderful upstate New York fall day, little brisk, little chilly, little raw, little rain, little whatever. Going to be 70s next weekend, though, so life in central New York. All right, let's get to some of the other weekend activities that you probably partake in. The Bills.
The Bills. Well, wait. The Steelers.
I'll get to the Steelers in a second because they screwed me over, and I'm going to get to that in a second. I'll get it to right now. They screwed me over.
Go ahead.
I had a 5-team parlay. They were the only ones I had $25 parlay for $1,500 to cash out. The only team I don't get, the Steelers.
Ouch.
All I had to do was the Bucs just had to win outright. I didn't even need them to win by any points, nothing. I just needed the Bucs to win outright. $1,500 in my pocket. I got nothing. So, thank you, Steelers, Mitch Trubisky.
I mean, Tom Brady's got to be rethinking some life decisions. A buddy of mine put it on social media. Imagine destroying your family only to come and lose to Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah.
You torch your entire family life, and you come out and
Is
lose.
Mitch Trubisky married? Because if not, he should be hitting up Giselle.
I'm just saying.
I don't know the life of Mitch Trubisky, but
I don't.
I mean, if I was him right now, I'd be on a roll. I'd be like, all right, might as well just hit her up, right?
Shooter's got to shoot. You got to shoot your shot.
Yeah. So the Steelers won, but screwed me. So bittersweet. But the Bills.
The Bills look
I didn't
good.
see all of the game, but I did see that they came back and beat up 24-20, I think it was. Yeah.
Yep.
So a little. Was it as exciting as the build-up was? I mean, obviously, probably the two best teams in the league, maybe.
I think so. I think.
Sorry
that's
about Eagles
fair.
fans, but
I mean, yeah. I think that the Bills it was exciting. It was frustrating. It was maddening. Like Ken Dorsey's doing a great job with the offense, and who am I to criticize an actual offensive coordinator in the NFL of the number one offense in the league? But if I may,
you may.
You have a running back averaging 8 yards a carry. You get inside the 5-yard line. You're like, you know what we need to do here? Just keep passing.
Yeah, you know who
over and over and over.
You know who had Devin Singletary in all of his fantasy lineups? This
Smart.
guy. Yeah, well, it wasn't that smart. I mean, he did okay, but my thought was, hey, this game's going to go sideways. It's not going to be 42-38 quarterback shootout. There's going to be some runs, and I'm going to capture all the scores, but that didn't really work out.
Yeah, I mean,
it was okay. But
I think the Chiefs have a problem with stopping the run. I don't think that's because the Bills are so effective. I mean, Josh Jacobs ran through that team last weekend, and it was crazy. And I think the same thing now of, like, it doesn't always have to be Josh Allen hurdling dudes. Like, give the ball. The guy's actually a pretty competent running back. Just give him the ball and let him run. Yeah. And they could have simplified the game. A couple of key mistakes. You know, get a wide receiver who slips in the end zone. You get a very same wide receiver who's not looking for the toss when Josh Allen
even the
throws
first touchdown was kind of a bonehead play, right? Schuster, they basically got hit by 3 guys, and they just fell to the ground, and he just turned around and was like, oh, I'm wide open. I guess I'll just walk in.
Yeah, that was not ideal. But they came back and they put it away. The defense stepped up. Von Miller is looking more and more like a wonderful addition and worth the money. I mean, 6 sacks in 6 games is about all you can ask for from.
Isn't that guy like 42?
No,
I mean, he seems like he's been around for a long time. No,
he has been around for a long time, but he's only like 34, 35, I believe.
That's like 42 in football.
In football years, yeah, you're 40. But this is the ideal situation for him because they rotate 8 defensive linemen. So by the time you get into the fourth quarter, they're fresh still. Like, they are still running, and it's a brilliant setup. Leslie Frazier called a great game. But again, if I'm allowed a criticism of the defensive coordinator who's...
That's what Monday morning quarterbacking is.
All right, good. So I have a microphone, and you don't.
Right.
So you will listen to every word I have to say. Now, listen, at some point, could we maybe rush more than 3 people on 3rd and long? I'm begging you, especially against Patrick Mahomes. Could we maybe? And to his credit, he did it. He did it in a very creative way. He started taking Matt Milano as the QB spy and sending him on like a delayed rush. So he would send 3 in, and then Milano would come streaking in, and that actually did work fairly well. But I was just like lamenting, sitting on my couch of, all right, 3rd and 9, and we're sending 3. First down. Like, it's not working. Maybe we got to try something else. But this is where, I mean, my criticism's not fair. They held the Kansas City Chiefs to 20 points. Like,
I mean, listen, again, back to not being a defensive coordinator, but the bend and break, don't break defense, that's literally what the Steelers did too, right? Like, they kind of, I think Tampa Bay moved the ball pretty good, but they didn't give up any touchdowns. So sometimes you can win without being aggressive, I guess. I don't feel like that's the way to go, but.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Travis
the prevent
Kelce
defense has been made fun of for so long because of similar situations, right? Like, you think you're playing safe and you're playing the situation, but you're letting the other team have more opportunity. So
because you can only cover somebody for so long. Yeah. At some point,
especially with a guy who can throw anywhere on the field, right? Like, so if somebody breaks open, he's going to find him.
Yeah.
What about the rest of the league here? The New York teams are all. I mean, what the hell? I literally had the Giants in my parlay over the Ravens yesterday. That was one of the upsets I had. So yeah,
good for you.
The parlay, if anybody wants to, I had the Falcons, which annihilated the.
Yeah.
I had them.
The 49ers.
I had New England annihilating the Browns. Had that. Had the Rams beating Carolina, which was one of my safe bets, along with Tampa Bay, which didn't work out. So, so Jets 4-2, Giants 5-1. I mean, the cream of the crop here, right in New York.
I mean, it's funny that we talk about that, but not Philadelphia still being undefeated. But I think there is an acknowledgement that Philadelphia has played a very, very let's go with favorable schedule, and it's going to continue being a favorable schedule. So they might make it to like 7 or 8, maybe 9.
They're going to get the Giants twice.
And that's going to be a hard game. I can't believe the Giants are good. Brian Daboll is doing a phenomenal job in New York City. I mean,
listen, having a healthy Barkley is a huge bonus, right? I mean, he's one of the best. If not, he could have been the best running back. I mean, obviously we're 2 years minus an injury here, but he seemed to have all the goods coming out, and then he's kind of taking a hiccup here, but now looks legit.
Listen,
again.
I do think Brian Dabble is going to go the road of Josh McDaniels in Denver a few years ago, where he came out on fire and like Tim Tebow was lighting things up, and they went to like 8-0, and everybody was crazy. And then the reality of Tim Tebow's the quarterback hit. And at some point, I think that moment is coming for the Giants. Of Daniel Jones is still the quarterback, so you guys are going to do great, but you are limited. And it's not
but they literally have if you look at the rest of the NFC, right?
Yeah.
The whole NFC West is 3-3 or 2-4.
Oh yeah.
Same thing with the NFC South.
Yep.
So they have a 2-game lead on a lot of these potential contenders for their playoff teams. Yeah. No.
But the problem, it's not that they will or won't make the playoffs. They might make the playoffs. It's just that at some point you have to upgrade the quarterback position. It's just the reality of you cannot have a quarterback who has as many fumbles as he does games played. That's the most mind-boggling stat I've ever seen for a starting NFL quarterback. And what he is able to do with this level of talent is unbelievable. And if they do bring in a upgraded quarterback and maybe, get some better wide receivers in there, this team's going to be amazing. So this year, enjoy every second of it, Giants fans. You're having a lot of fun. I don't think this is the year you go to the Super Bowl. I think Daniel Jones
but first time in a while where they actually get to watch games with import, right?
And it's got, listen, I was here as a Bills fan a few years ago where you're like, oh my God, we're actually kind of good. Who knew? And Brian Dabble was a big reason for that. But it wasn't until they brought in that they had to get the talent right. And once they did that, then it was good. So I love what the Giants are doing. I still think the Jets are not good.
No.
I can't figure out how they're 4-1 or whatever they are.
4-2, yeah.
4-2. It makes no sense how this team is winning.
The Packers don't look good, right?
No,
they look bad. So
I think they'll work it out, though. I think generally speaking, Aaron Rodgers is going to figure it out by the end of the year, and they're going to be okay.
Yeah, listen, I don't know if they figure it out. The Vikings are 5-1, so that's the one team in the NFC that's kind of putting some wins together. And
but that's going to come back to bite them, man, because that means they're going to get more primetime games come November, December, and we all know Kirk Cousins in primetime games suddenly turns into Tim Tebow. I don't have a better way of explaining it. Kirk Cousins on a 1 o'clock start with no viewers is like a top 7 quarterback in the NFL. Kirk Cousins in a primetime game looks like he has never played the position nor seen a professional game played. He looks so incompetent when the lights are brightest. It is unbelievable.
Well, then maybe we can get a Vikings Saints, Dalton-led Saints, because I feel like Andy Dalton's the same way. Just implodes on national television.
Yeah,
I watched him for 10 years implode on every game. Even when they were supposedly the cream of the crop in the division, they would suck on all the primetime games.
Always. And now now he's behind Jameis Winston, who's so fun to watch play because it's basically like, I don't care if I have 30 interceptions as long as I have 35 touchdowns. Yeah. And he's just going to sling it.
Yeah. So, all right. Any other NFL takes before we just touch on the other sports that are happening in the world? We're actually in a prime sports part of the calendar year. But
sports stuff. Yankees tied
up
the series.
Yankees, yeah.
Very exciting.
2-2, Game 5 tonight.
Cole pitched great. It was a great outing. Yeah. And I'm excited. I'm in. Let's go Yankees.
Yeah. So that'll be they'll end up playing Houston if my my bracket looks correct here, and the Phillies are playing the Padres on the other side.
Yeah, the Dodgers, man. What a letdown.
Yeah. I don't know anything about any of those teams, but
Dodgers had the 4th highest win total in MLB history, and then just lost to the Padres in a 3-game or in 3 games.
Isn't that what the Seattle Mariners did? The Ichiro Seattle Mariners, remember Ichiro? They were they had 125 wins or something. They lost in the first round of the playoffs, I feel like. So, yeah, you got to have the pitching in the playoffs for sure.
You peaked in high school.
Yeah. All right. And NBA starts tomorrow, I think, or Thursday, one of these days. I know it's
big
riveting for you, but just so you know, my fantasy DraftKings is going to very enjoy the effect of the NBA season.
Also, how have we not discussed the fact that Syracuse Orange is 6-0?
6-0.
Unbelievable. And a great game against NC State.
Yep.
You put the asterisk on there. I know they had their backup quarterback, but still, they look good.
Yeah.
And they can move the ball. That was a legit defense.
Yeah, what a change from last year where Schrader was, hit or miss at best, and now he looks legit. Legit enough to where he's probably going to get looks, probably get a combine invite.
Yeah, dude looked, he learned to fly. You get it? Because they always make the reference on how he's a pilot now in the games. Sorry. I guess I thought that was funny, but not you. I stand by that joke.
I remembered as you told me he was a pilot, but that's not in the front of my brain.
I've heard it on every time I watch the game. They go through the whole thing of him flying, and then they ask the sideline reporter, like, "Would you get in the plane with him?" Like, I'd let him fly. No, it was a great. I'm still happy with that joke. I don't even care.
Yeah, that's good.
He looks legitimately good. I mean, he might get drafted, but it's gonna.
I'm not sure if he's going to get drafted, but I think he's going to get
if he maintains a 70% completion rating, and
he's
puts
bringing
up these
himself
numbers,
to the discussion, right? So like whether or not he gets drafted or not, he's going to get a tryout regardless. And like I said, if he keeps playing like this and they end up 10-2 or something, I'm like he's going to get.
I mean, they're going to go to 6-1 next week, but that's okay because it's Clemson. Like you can take that loss as long as you look good. It's not going to kill you in the rankings. And then the big ones come. Then you get Notre Dame. You got Pitt in there. Like
I feel like Notre Dame's not that good this year, right?
But they're a big name
for sure, right? I think they were preseason ranked high, but I think they lost a couple games early and then kind of fell apart. So maybe that's
it would be a huge win for the Orange to.
The program would benefit from it greatly for sure.
And I'm all for it. Let's go Cuse. I mean, I'm not going to a game or anything, but God bless you, go Cuse.
I mean, they sold out. It was the first time in like 10 years.
Incredible, and that environment had to be amazing.
Yeah. I've been to some crazy games at the Dome there, or whatever it's called now. But back in the day when it was the Dome, there was some great games there. So it's a great crowd. I mean, I feel like we're fair weather fans, but like we're passionate fair weather fans. So like when it's fair weather, we're like all in because we never get the fair weather. Just like whatever.
All right, listen, it's okay to be called a fair weather fan and everything, but here's my take on it. If the product you put out year after year is garbage, you cannot get mad at me for not throwing my money at it.
No doubt.
If you can't do better, then don't get mad at me for not coming to watch crappy football. I'm sorry. I'm not going to – there's no fun in this for me to come and watch you get shellacked because you can't throw a 7-yard out and make it complete. Like, I'm not in. So you've got a certain level of responsibility of you got to earn some fandom, especially when you're trying to sell out 45,000 because the reality is – you're not Ohio State. You're not Michigan. You're not Alabama. Like, you don't have that track record. So once you win a few national championships, then you can complain to me about fair weather fans.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any kind of irrational exuberance locally that they think that this is like some kind of national championship caliber team or anything. But it is undeniably fun for the community to have a team with, especially the football team, which is hasn't had success in a couple of decades, prolonged success, and it's fun, right? Like, I mean, it's just fun for everybody. You can see it. Everybody's happy. People I don't like, people I like are all happy. So
that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And but I think that's all the sports. I think, like I said, we'll get into NBA as you dive in. But all right. So because we missed last week, I have a little segment here that I'm going to call Newsapalooza.
Newsapalooza. Jesus. Give me a hard time about my flying joke.
Well, I won't get into the reason why I labeled it Newsapalooza, but let's start with the first bit of Newsapalooza.
Sure.
So, in the spirit of the Nancy Pelosi track here, did you see that Jim Cramer now has an ETF, the anti-Jim Cramer? How great is that?
It's amazing.
That's awesome. Like, I don't invest like that, but the fact that somebody went through and figured out how to do whatever anti-Jim Cramer is just one of the epic trolls of all time, and I'm here for it.
The inverse Cramer ETF. Yeah. So whatever he buys, it sells, and whatever he sells, it buys. Yeah. It's going to kill it.
Yeah, he has a seemingly long public track record of calling it wrong.
All the time.
All the time. It's almost like he's a mouthpiece of certain aspects of the industry.
Yeah, it's almost like he is a performer more than an actual legit investor. And don't get me wrong, he does have more knowledge than the average person, but the idea that he's viewed as some type of guru is just, it's laughable.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, he pushes buttons, and right, I mean, it's an entertainment show.
Yeah, and he feeds the information that the investment companies want out. So when he's saying like, we got to go, this one is definitely a sell, it's because the institutional investors all want to buy it and they want everybody else to sell it so they can buy it cheaper. Like, it's just comical that anybody is following along with this dude thinking he has your best interest at heart. He doesn't. Sorry, folks.
He's a stooge.
Yeah.
All right, next.
But he carved out a living for himself.
Oh,
Good
no
for
doubt.
him.
Yeah, no. Like I said, it was more entertaining, but now when people, because he's become a figurehead that you can kind of point to him for actual data and facts, and he's so wrong that
all the time.
Here we are.
Hilarious.
All right, let's touch on Hunter Biden a little bit. So, just
what are we? Never mind.
Sorry.
I'm going to make a hooker joke.
I'll just read the headline here. David Weiss, the U.S. attorney who holds Hunter Biden's fate in his hands. So, David Weiss is a little-known, I'll read this first paragraph, little-known U.S. attorney from Delaware, will soon step into the spotlight as the Justice Department's prosecutor for the power to file potential criminal charges against President Joe Biden's troubled son, Hunter. So the FBI built its case, gave it to this U.S. attorney, and he is holding the case pending some kind of action, right? And the discussion is whether or not he's going to do it before the election. It seems unlikely at this point, since we're 3 weeks out from the midterms, that the FBI will not play spoiler one way or the other. And I mean, clearly they're playing spoiler by not releasing it. But either way, they're not going to probably charge Hunter with anything until after the midterms. But
so dumb.
Yeah, it's dumb. But I will say that. What do you think of the fact that Biden released all of the U.S. attorneys under Trump except for this guy? Now, the theory is that he did it to try to maintain credibility for the investigation, and that if they took this guy out, that the investigation would, be, the Barbra Streisand effect would take over, and the Republicans would be like, look at this, whatever, right? I don't know this guy from a hole in the wall, and, I don't know that Trump knows this guy from a hole in the wall. He appointed him, and who knows?
Trump also appointed the judge who signed the warrant of Mar-a-Lago.
He appointed, John Bolton. So, whatever. He's had some bad decisions in his life, bad judgments, and this could be one. But it's interesting that he is the one lone U.S. attorney that was a holdover from the Trump administration and is holding all the cards here in this thing. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, I don't expect any Hunter Biden charges for the next 3 weeks here until after the midterms. But
I love the way that they frame it as Joe Biden's troubled son. No, how about Joe Biden's criminal son?
Well, he's never been arrested, Mr. Hussong.
I get it. Yeah.
So there's nothing to report on. There's nothing to see here. This is just, we're waiting for the facts to unfold.
And OJ never went to prison for murder. I'm just saying, it happens. But the idea that, here's the thing. We already know for a fact that he's broken laws. It's not even a debatable point anymore. The question is how many and what can you prove? Offhand, as soon as there's videos of you smoking crack and you had to put on a application for a pistol that you've never used drugs and you don't actively use them even though you do, it's falsifying on a form. It's illegal. So there's that. The income tax evasion has to be just through the roof is for Hunter and for Joe. Unbelievable levels of that. So I get it. He's troubled because he's addicted.
Yeah, and those are, to me, those are minor infractions.
Yes.
I mean, they're major infractions, but they're minor infractions to what I feel like he's actually done.
Right.
So who knows if those are going to lead to additional charges with more meat on those bones there. But,
here's where
we're not going to know for weeks.
Here's where the appearance alone is so laughably ridiculous. He was getting paid $80,000 a month to be on the board of this Ukrainian energy company. So they paid him $1.8 million over the span of 13 months, give or take. So go in a year. He made a little over $1 million in a year. Never attended a meeting, never did anything for them, was just getting paid millions of dollars to have his name listed as a board seat while his father, the vice president, was in charge of Ukrainian policy for America. Totally normal. For comparison, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, former director of CDC, sitting on the board of Pfizer as they roll out the largest vaccination program in history and make more money in one quarter than they've ever made under his title as former CDC director former FDA director / current Pfizer board member that keeps getting left off. So this guy used every ounce of his credibility to push these COVID vaccines for Pfizer. And in the same time, 1 year was paid about $450,000. So Pfizer views Dr. Scott Gottlieb is worth about $400,000 per year, but Burisma viewed Hunter Biden as worth almost 3 times as much to never attend a meeting, never peddle a product, never go out and have any public relations. It just seems off. I'm just saying. I feel like maybe what were they paying him for? Because I'm going to assume they're not stupid. So if they're not stupid and he was somehow worth $1.3 million or whatever that number was, what was he doing?
Yeah. I don't know that we're ever going to find that out. I mean, we'll see what happens if the midterms kind of roll with the Republicans. The Republicans decide to grow a sack and actually investigate this. But I feel like they're going to investigate. They're going to find people on their own side doing some of the same shit. So
good. Fine.
Good for me.
All.
But it's a limiting part of any investigation, right?
That's
They're
true.
like, okay, we're only going to go so far because if we get this far, then all these other people are involved, and then we'd have nothing to cover our ass with. But so, I don't know. We've been waiting for Hunter Biden here seemingly for a year and a half now, at least.
At least.
We're gonna have to wait another couple of weeks, so and we'll see what happens. All right. In other law news, Alex Jones ordered to pay $965 million to the families of Sandy Hook. Now, I don't think this is ever going to get paid, to be honest with you, but, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that I feel like
it's wrong.
The minutia of the legal proceedings will make this not happen. I don't know, whatever it is. I don't pretend to have full knowledge of this, but I've read enough where I'm like, it seems like there's outs for him. But anyway, $1 billion-ish to Alex Jones defaming the families of Sandy Hook. What would be the appropriate order to be paid for, I don't know, Albert Bourla or Anthony Fauci or any of these other misinformation characters who have led us down
Rochelle Walensky?
Any of them. Like, they all should be, the question should be asked and directed at these people. If somebody can mislead or defame a family, what about Biden when he basically said this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, right? I mean, do I get to sue Biden now for $1 billion? I feel like I should.
I feel like you should too. Listen, if this is the standard, this is what it is. I mean, you're talking about what we now know with side effects, that at least some people were absolutely physically harmed and killed because they took this vaccine. Now, you could still argue that it's worth it from a safety perspective and a risk-benefit analysis. I would disagree with you, but you can have the conversation. Cool. Here's what you can't have. If Alex Jones defamed these people through the intentional infliction of emotional distress so grotesquely that it was worth $1 billion, how much is it? And by all accounts, listen, I don't know that Alex Jones, I think he believed it. I don't think he was doing it with the intent of defaming anybody. I think he genuinely believed what he was saying was true. And you can laugh at that, but look at what the guy's been right about. It's terrifying. So if he could say all that and it's worth $1 billion, then I don't want to hear that Joe Biden really believed that the vaccines were working. I don't want to hear it. I'm sorry. Like, if this is the standard now, this is a terrifying standard for free speech. And what he said was horrible. What he said was absolutely awful. But if you're cheering this, you're probably going to want to pause, because this is not going to go well if this is the new standard. This is not okay. Like, and this is my opinion, because I don't listen to Alex Jones a lot. I'm not like a InfoWars insider or anything. Like, I don't. I find him interesting when I hear him talk about wild stuff that is crazy, and I take it with a grain of salt. Now, I get what he said was horrible. I do. I'm not belittling that under any circumstances. It was terrible. And if you're going to get one wrong, that's when you can't get wrong. I'm sorry, you just can't. $1 billion? That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think he has $1 billion to pay him, so that's one of the reasons why I don't think that's gonna ever happen. But there's legal obstacles that he can put up, and I'm sure he's got enough resources to at least drag this out for as long as he possibly can, anyway. But yeah, I'm not a fan of defamation lawsuits, period. Anyway, like, at all. Like, I don't know that they're really justified in any way. I've heard a bunch of lawyers basically say, hey, this is a terrible precedent, and talk about how defamation shouldn't even be allowed. But
I have no issue with defamation being a thing, but it has to be intentional. You have to go out setting out to cause somebody harm by lying about them. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. If what you're saying is true, you can't be tried for defamation, all right? In this case, it wasn't true, and I get that. But my opinion, if you're going to have defamation, there has to be intent. Otherwise, you have to be given the freedom of expression to try out unpopular things. You have to be given that leeway in a society that is free and functioning to be wrong. You have to be able to be wrong. If everything is predicated on you being right or not speaking at all, then I'm sorry, but there's a lot of public officials that are about to get sued. And if talking about, accusing somebody of being a crisis actor is worth $1 billion, what's causing a 16-year-old to die from not myocarditis, but from heart issues related to a vaccine? Like, what's that worth? Oh, well, he didn't know. Well, he should have known, because there were a lot of us without any science degrees that were pointing out, hey, this risk profile is nuts. There's no way that this is going to do what they're saying it's going to do. So you're going to tell me that you shouldn't have reasonably been able to know? I disagree. And you use your very public pulpit, for lack of a better word, to go browbeat people into taking this thing. So, yeah, you absolutely, if this is the standard, I'm sorry, somebody should sue them. And they should win.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if anybody follows up with something similar to try to kind of point out the things that you just laid out there. So, yeah, well, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But, I find it highly unlikely that anywhere close to $965 million is ever paid out by Alex Jones.
I agree with that. And, again, I'm not
even saying
what
right.
he did. But it shouldn't be. Like, that's insanity. Yeah. This is not okay. And there's an old saying that you learn in law school, and it is hard cases make bad laws. We want to punish him for saying such horrible things about parents that lost their children to a school shooting. It's a hard case. But the law and the precedent that arises from this is terrible. And you have to fight that urge and just say, look, I know you want to punish the guy, but it can't be this way, because the next time up that this gets used is going to be worse.
I mean, it's inflation, so $900 billion is not quite what it used to be anymore.
Somebody pointed out O.J. Simpson only got like $33 million for killing Ron Goldman and Nicole Simpson. Like $33 million versus $965 billion, or $965 million is quite the quite the inflationary trend.
Yeah. Well, if you make people upset, that's way worse than killing people, I guess.
Well, now we know.
All right. Let's move on. Tulsi Gabbard made an announcement. I feel like it's probably a year and a half too late, but take it anyway. The leaving the Democratic Party. Not that I think the Democrats were probably wishing that she would stay, because I feel like most of them had turned on her during the 2020 presidential run anyway. So
when she roasted Kamala Harris live on a debate stage.
Yeah, and I said this to somebody else too. So I could tell early on, back when I used to work at the previous place, I talked to some what I would consider plugged-in Democrats locally here and asked them specifically about Tulsi, and every single one of them dismissed her as either a loon or a crazy person or whatever. And this was before the Kamala stuff, like before all that stuff. So the narrative was built in with the party establishment long before she decided to run. Obviously, we can go back in the history. She publicly endorsed Bernie Sanders during the Hillary Clinton run in 2016. At that time, she was I feel like the chair of the DNC. Like she was
vice chair, I think.
Maybe, yeah. So high up, like, well thought of, well respected within the party, probably a potential presidential candidate if she would have played game, if she would have played, ball with the right people. She didn't. Specifically, she took aim at Hillary Clinton and
Kamala Harris.
Here we are. So good for her. Listen, I would love for her to run for president. I don't see how she does it, because it's just impossible for third parties to get on the ballot in enough states to conceivably win a presidential race. But like, if I could throw out a dream pairing of two quote-unquote independent, non-affiliated politicians right now, I would throw out Tulsi Gabbard and Justin Amash, former Libertarian congressman, as potential 2024 outsider candidates who could conceivably generate enough public attention and votes to play spoiler at least in 2024. But I still feel like it's a long shot at best.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm glad that she left. I think we need more prominent people leaving both parties, because the parties have rigged the system so that they cannot lose. And until you break that system, you're always going to get what you've always gotten. And the lesser of two evils is still evil. So it could be the lesser of two evils, but for how long? Every time you vote for the lesser of two evils, you're still getting more evil. Like it's still trending in the direction you don't want it to go.
And I will say, on her way out, she pinpointed the main thing, right? She's like, the party's a bunch of war hawks, right? So like,
yeah.
And listen, I think there's a segment of both parties that are just war hawks, and right now the Democrats have control, so they're more prevalent. But she called them out, and I feel like if there was ever a reason to leave either one of the parties or any of the parties, is because they back endless wars, right? Like that should be, to me, that's my number one priority of all time. Like I can't get past foreign policy as not being the most important thing, because it affects everything downstream of that. So
right. It's not only endless wars, it's pointless wars.
Yeah, right.
It's war for the sake of war.
Yeah,
that's what we have.
To me, those
now.
are the same thing, right? Because there's no desired outcome of the war. It's just prolonged war. They just want the revenue stream. So I'm glad she called it out. I'm glad she left. I hope the future is bright for her. Obviously, she's going to do a podcast, I'm sure. But I don't know. Good for Tulsi, and we'll see how this plays out for 2024. But speaking of some elections, you sent me a poll today. I want to talk a little bit about just some midterm stuff.
Yeah.
Let's touch New York first. So first of all, we have our unelected current incumbent governor, Kathy Hochul. And she is running against Republican Congressman Lee Zeldin, downstate congressman. Now, I've had some people ask me about some polling because the polling seems to be narrowing here. And let's just call myself a skeptic when we refer to polls because I don't believe any of them. So they're just data points that I look at and try not to put too much stock in. But I do see all the polls narrowing, which I think, do I think Hochul's going to win by 20 points? Probably not. I still think she could win by 10 plus points, which means it's not really that close. But if Zeldin could pull it to within, let's say 5 to 6 points, then I think even if he can't win, that shows that the rest of the state is going to go red, right? So like there's going to be a bunch of congressional seats, there's going to be a bunch of state legislator seats that are going to go red, which I think is going to give some balance to the state. Not that I'm pro-red by any means. I'm not pro-blue or pro-red, but I think having balance is important. We have been living under basically one-party rule here in this state for decades. Unless you want to count the crazy Cuomo-led insurrection, IDC part of the assembly, whatever, craziness in here in New York. But anyway, we have not had a statewide elected Republican since George Pataki in the 90s or whatever it is. So I want to be encouraged that there's going to be some balance after this midterm election. The polling seems to lead that's going to be the way. Specifically, if you want to look at New York 22, which is our congressional district, we have a guy who's running for a second time on the Democrat Party, a guy who's running for the first time on the Republican Party. Wait, I'll get this in a second. But did you see that let's backtrack just for my own personal satisfaction. Steve Wells and Brandon Williams had a Republican primary. Steve Wells got housed, in large part because I think the ad that he ran about Brandon Williams being an elite truffle farmer backfired so bad that people were like, I'm voting again for the other guy, which is literally, I had no dog in the race before that. And then when I saw the ad, I was like, I'm voting for the other guy because this is ridiculously stupid. But not to be outdone, the Democratic House Majority PAC released a truffle ad just yesterday.
No, they didn't.
Not exactly the same way, but they literally, if you watched it without actually listening to the thing, it looks like they're all literally smelling truffles, which don't look all that appealing when you're looking at the video. So there's this whole little segment of the Democrats are going to try to peg Brandon Williams as a, trust fund, whatever, elitist truffle farmer, which the other guy is just as bad the same way. So, yeah, again, this guy doesn't work. He runs for office and decides that I'm going to be a congressman. So, but what I want to bring up is even Knoll's internal polling have him down. So, in a +7 Biden district.
Buddy, this isn't complicated. The only thing he's hitting Brandon Williams on is abortion. Like, all right, first off, we live in New York State where there is a 0% chance of abortion being outlawed via popular vote.
Let me share this before you keep going. So you shared me this. This is the Harvard-Harris poll, and this is the most important issues for voters.
Primary issue to vote.
So I'm going to give you the top 5 here, and you guys can read it on the screen along here. Inflation, number 1, 37%. This is for most important issues. Number 2, the economy and jobs, which really is linked to number 1, 29%. Immigration, 23%. Crime and drugs, 18%. Abortion comes in at 5 at 17%. And I will note, January 6th is 6th in the most important issue, 7% of registered voters.
No, it's not 6. It's like 17.
Oh, okay. Good.
I'm looking at the full list right now.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah.
Because
I have that down here, too.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Price increase, inflation, the economy, immigration, crimes and drugs, women's rights is 4, and healthcare is 5.
You can combine those a little bit, because some of that might be COVID.
Yeah. You got to some of that is some pro-life too, and some pro-choice.
Sure.
So there's going to be a split. Guns and then climate change is at 14%. National debt 13%. Terrorism, national security 11%. Corruption, school safety, coronavirus, taxes, voting rights, income inequality, criminal justice, education, and then there's January 6th.
So, by my count, this is just a rough count here, looking at these issues, the majority of them are right-leaning issues, right? Where the people are...
If you're concerned about it,
right. If you're going away from... Right. If you're concerned about these issues, you're more likely to be voting Republican.
Right.
we've been talking about this, I feel like, for a couple of years now, that there is going to be a red wave or whatever you want to call it, where there's going to be a rebound effect or ping pong effect, whatever you want to call it. There's going to be some kind of swinging back to the right.
Swinging.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring this up only because I had some Democratic door knockers come to my house here recently, 2 on the same day.
Nice.
Both with Rachel May and Francis Knoll literature in their hands. And literally the only thing they started talking to me about was election integrity. That was the first thing they talked about. And I see this way down here on the list is barely above January 6th. It's like they're running on the wrong things.
Yes,
they're running on abortion, which, listen, I'm not dismissing that issue as I feel like it's an important issue to a lot of people, but it's not that important as they're trying to make it out this year, and they're running on it. January 6th is irrelevant to most people. They're running on it. Election integrity / January 6th. They're running on these things that people don't care about. So, and just to point out, that's all they talked to me about when they knocked on my door is like, oh, this is our elections, our democracy is at stake. I was like, I tried to hold myself back, man. Like, you guys are loons. Like, get the hell off my yard.
Right.
I wanted to be Clint Eastwood all of a sudden. Get off my yard. Get off my lawn. So the idea that they're going to be successful running on these issues that nobody cares about is mind-boggling, but par for the course for the Democrats. I think there's going to be a national push, and I think New York is going to be surprisingly more red than most people think on the day after election.
I agree. I think we're at the Democrat Party right now is at the political equivalent of it's an old legal saying, if the law is not on your side, bang on the facts. If the facts aren't on your side, bang on the law. If neither's on your side, bang on a table. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. Is like all they have is Roe v. Wade got overturned. And I think a lot of people kind of take a similar approach to me at this point, which is like, hey, regardless of your stance on abortion, there can be an acknowledgement that Roe v. Wade was a terribly decided law case. It was awful. If you want to codify the right to an abortion in the law, you could do that, but you have to go through the legislative process to do that. Otherwise, it goes to the state votes, and every state's going to vote. And in New York State, you're never going to vote to ban abortion. It's not going to happen. So, I think that's the right thing, is that we shouldn't have a national vote one way or the other on it. So, all right, let's say number one, if that's my number one issue, I'm already no percent chance am I ever voting for a Republican or an independent. Like, I'm going as far left as you can go. If abortion is my number one issue, if I think that the right to an abortion from conception to birth is the number one thing on my plate, I'm not in play. My vote's not up for grabs anyway. All right, let's just start there.
Yep.
The rest of this stuff, if you're trying to talk to me about January 6th, I don't care. I just don't. Like, I think it's I shouldn't say I don't care. I don't care for the reason you want me to care. I don't care. I don't think it was an insurrection where we almost lost our government. Like, it's a joke to even say that aloud. The guy with a Viking helmet on was not going to suddenly take over the country. It was never going to happen. So you keep banging on this because here's the reality. The price increases and inflation are a very real problem that you're making worse with your policies. The economy is not doing well right now. It's not as much to do with your policies. It has a lot to do with previous policies, but we're feeling the effects of that now, and we're going to continue to do so. Immigration, you're doing a bang-up job there, and your only defense is, well, you guys got to stop talking about it because it's giving the other side, it's giving the coyotes and everything else in these cartels incentive to lure people in. That's what your attack is. Not that it's wrong, not that it's incorrect. Just that we should stop talking about it. It's bold strategy. What are they going to run on?
Yeah, I had made this point to somebody who asked me about specifically the New York 22 race, and I said, if the Dems can make it about abortion, he wins. If Williams can keep it about economy and inflation, he wins. It seems as though the abortion issue is not resonating with enough voters. And let me throw this nugget out here to another article that I pulled up. So let me just read this. The New York Times Siena College survey released Monday found that 49% of likely voters indicated they would vote for a GOP congressional candidate compared to 45% who planned on pulling the lever for a Democrat. a 3-point lead when adjusted for mathematical rounding. A note on that, the shift was most pronounced among undecided women who supported Democrat candidates by a 14-point margin last month, but were now backing Republicans with an 18-point margin.
That's
huge swing, right? So if we're going back to the abortion healthcare issue and we think that the women are going to be the most impacted by this law and therefore the most passionate about voting against this law or voting for a candidate who's going to do that, it hasn't been showed out in these numbers. Again, these are polling. Polls are polls, and
Sure.
they're limited. They're little snapshots, and they are what they are, but that's not good.
No.
If you're a Democrat, if you're rooting for a Democrat,
You can't feel good about this.
no, there is a lot of things going against your way this midterm. So I don't know. Like I said, we'll see. I don't know. Are we going to do an election show? We talked about that. Yeah, maybe we'll be here live for you guys on Election Tuesday here, so we can cover some of this. But I expect significant red gains in even in New York, let alone across the country. So
I'm in agreement.
All right. So that's the end of my Newsapalooza.
Okay.
Of my assorted things that I feel like we missed. We didn't get a chance to talk to on last show because we missed. So this is kind of a Newsapalooza, but COVID Newsapalooza. So just a bunch of stories that are just about COVID / vaccine / lizard people. So first I want to touch on this because this is from October 2nd. I shared this on the social medias back in the when I saw this here. Fauci's NIAID gifts $3.3 million grant to study bat coronaviruses to the company at the center of the COVID leak controversy in Wuhan. So our good buddy, Peter Daszak, and EcoHealth Alliance, the folks who were experimenting with bat viruses and trying to get spike proteins inserted into...
Excuse me. Not trying.
Well,
did.
They were
Give
trying
credit
until
where
they
credit is due,
until
all
they
right?
were successful.
They did it, all right?
So this same group, EcoHealth Alliance, regardless of what we're talking about with gain-of-function research or whether or not that's actually still allowed under U.S. law or whether or not we should be more aware of this research and be more cautious about that, Fauci's just he's on his way out, right? So he just gives another grant to EcoHealth Alliance and Peter Daszak to study effing bat viruses more.
0 F's given.
What are we doing? What are we doing? I don't even know what to say anymore, but like everybody should be aware that we're still doing the same things that got us into this thing to begin with.
Yeah.
Your boy Alec Berenson, I can read his tweet. He's the one who kind of brought me to attention to this here. So he's like, this must be a joke. Please tell me this is a joke. He's like, NIH just gave EcoHealth Alliance and Peter Daszak a new grant for bat coronaviruses, including supplying viral sequence and isolates for use in vaccine development. Nope, not a joke.
Listen,
what are we doing? Like,
if you're of the opinion,
did you see this anywhere in the news?
No,
nobody's pointing out the fact that we're still doing the thing that got us into the 2-year pandemic, self-inflicted wounds.
Well, that's because people won't acknowledge that that's how we got into it. There's still a lot of people who believe that this was a naturally occurring virus that just evolved and made its way into humanity despite all of the evidence to the contrary. And to those people, I just have to ask a very simple question. What would it take for you to lose some faith in these people? What would it take for the absolute fealty that you seem to have pledged to Anthony Fauci and all these other people?
I know.
Hit me.
Trump comes out and supports them all. He wants more bat virus research. That's the only way to get him out, right?
Listen,
he is literally the pendulum. He is the pivot point of all issues. If Trump is on one side of the issue, everybody who hates him is automatically on the other side of the issue, regardless if they believe it or not.
God. I spent 2 years on this show pointing out Trump makes everyone dumber.
Yeah, you're right.
It's an incredible phenomenon that we got to watch over and over again. But
so I think Trump's the solution.
He might be. We're just going to have him come out. But the problem is he's already pro-vaccine.
Well, we don't know that. I mean, the left hasn't acknowledged that part
I
yet.
know. But, like, we're going to have a theme on this show with some of the different topics of, like, Donald Trump gets criticized for all of the wrong reasons. Like, the idea is wild that he is somehow seen as this anti-vaxxer. Like, no, he's the one who installed Operation Warp Speed and put the fucking
He wanted to call it Trump vaccine.
He put the vice president of Pfizer in charge. Like, of developing this vaccine where it was a technology that had never been able to even get to a human trial, and he allowed them to skip the human trial. Like, why are we not blaming him for this? Every adverse effect should go back to his feet. He is the one who allowed this to happen. But instead, it's got to be seen as like, well, if Trump would just tell his idiot followers to get vaccinated, then they all would. Yep. Nope. You definitely understand the issues all the way around. Way to go. But as it relates to this, it's such a joke. There's nothing else to make of this. But this is why the Democrats are going to lose, is because they support this. And now too many people are at least owning up to the idea of like, look, it can no longer be explained away by incompetence. It can no longer be explained away by bad luck. You have a genuine disdain and indifference for the average person living in this country. Like, you don't owe them a thing, and that you are just their superior in every way, and people are getting tired of it. You want more Trump? This is how you get more Trump.
So let's move on to vaccines.
Awesome.
Headline: Florida Surgeon General issues warning for mRNA coronavirus vaccines. Florida, quote, Florida will not be silent on the truth. So the Attorney General, the Florida Surgeon General of Florida, there, basically, I'll read this, recommends now against giving men's age 18 to 39 the mRNA coronavirus vaccine, citing a heightened risk of cardiac-related death. So this is something we've talked about multiple times. Probably some of the stuff that we got banned on YouTube for, but apparently the Florida Surgeon General has now basically said, hey, we're not going to recommend this vaccine for anybody. Not, mind you, it's Florida, and they've kind of been an outlier in this whole thing, so maybe there'll be a trendsetter here. I'm not sure. This guy seems to be quite the character himself. But we have a massive state in the United States not, recommending against giving this. And this is, there's countries outside of this one who are doing the same thing. And that for all ages on some of them. But this is a beginning. I don't know. Is this the beginning of a breakdown of the vaccine infrastructure, and at least in red states, maybe? I don't know.
I'm going to call it a continuation of the breakdown, because the beginning already happened. The beginning happened when they rolled out the variant-specific boosters, and they only got a 1% uptake. Like, that was the beginning for me of, like, you lost the room. It's done. If you, with all of your heavy recommendations and rollout, you can't even get 10% of the people to take it, you lost. Yeah. Like, your side the people have woken up, and this is to quote Abraham Lincoln, you could fool some of the people all the time, all the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And that's what you're seeing now, is people are coming around to the idea of like, hey, I got 2 shots, I got my 2, then I got boosted, and then I got COVID twice, and I got sick. Well, you didn't die. Like, listen, a lot of shots need boosters. Like, if you get your, what's the popular one? MMR.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if I took 3 shots and then got measles, I'd be pissed. Like, well, what did I do this for?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. It's, oh, God help me.
Well, like I said, I think you're right in that these folks have lost the room, not the Florida folk here, but the vaccine folks have lost the room, and they're never getting it back.
No, listen, it's the vaccine and the mass crowd has lost, and they don't know it yet, and they're going to fight, and they're going to be the loudest portion yelling.
Bring back
loudest.
mask was trending on Twitter a couple days ago.
But, and here's the problem, and this is how I know it. I've got a couple different group texts that go on with a bunch of different people, and for most of COVID, I was an outlier, and almost everyone, short of my text exchange with you and like 2 other people, I was the outlier. Everybody was like, "Oh, you're nuts, man. You like just." I promise you, masks work. They definitely work. There's no doubt, you guys. It's cool. And I'm sitting there like, no, they don't. Like, but even now, like those text messages, somebody sent it out that their New York State was Onondaga County was being recommended to go back to masking. And almost every single person in this 8-person group text was like, F that, absolutely not, never again, I'm not doing it.
Good.
So I was like, all right, yep, you lost everybody. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
Listen,
nobody wants to acknowledge that I was right.
So this will be comical for you, maybe.
Oh, boy.
So one of my events recently here was a climate change activist group, let's just call them. Local. I think they have a national presence, but this is a local chapter, whatever. They were celebrating their anniversary of whatever being in existence. I'm going to guess 50 to 60 people were in this event, and 40 to 45 of them had masks on.
Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Like, there's the Venn diagram is pretty substantial with the climate change / mask wearing.
Yeah.
That being said, it was only a 2-hour event, very short event. So And people were coming in without them, and I purposely stood near the front door so people could see my face without a mask on immediately so that they could feel at least some assurance that not everybody was wearing a mask and have obligated to do that. I did my part.
Very good of you.
And people were very unsure about it, and I heard people ask, and they said it was encouraged but not mandatory. Most people had them on. That being said, after about their first or second drink, there was nobody wearing them. Strategically, I've noticed that a bunch of the non-wearing mask folks were congregating next to the food so they could continue to pick at food while they could have conversations without masks on. Very smart on their part.
Good call.
So by the end of it, so maybe at the beginning of it, there was like 75% with masks, and by the end of it, there was 75% without masks. So there's still people out there who still feel like the masks are a thing, and, you know, I've given up trying to convince them anything other than that. They can wear whatever they want to wear as long as they're not making me do it. I don't care. I'll talk to them and struggle through the conversation trying to hear their muffled voice. But especially when they're trying to ordering a drink over the music and a mask, I'm like, I need to read your lips. Can you move that mask? Anyway, so there are still masked people out there, Mr. Hussong, and I don't know that they're going away anytime soon. But it was encouraging to see that the majority of them removed the mask by the end of it.
I saw a lot more masks in Costco last week than I've seen in a long time. Like it was noticeable how many more people were suddenly wearing masks. And I don't know the proper way to look at these people any longer. So I find my immediate reaction is a mix of sympathy and outright dismissal of anything that you might want to talk about or anything. Like, I don't have time for you. I feel so bad that this happened to you and that you bought in this hard, but I have no time. I got no time for you.
Like, I mean, and like I said, I've moved on from trying to whatever, but like it's hard to take them seriously for anything at this point. So, all right, something I do take seriously.
Oh God,
more on the COVID vaccine mRNA Newsapalooza version from Zero Hedge. I'm going to read this headline: Moderna /Mode RNA. Moderna CEO confirms new mRNA injection to repair heart muscles after heart attacks. So, let me get this straight. Moderna, the saviors of us all, their CEO,
Stéphane Bancel,
solid, upstanding individual, has a new mRNA injection to repair heart muscles following heart attacks. Why would they need this repair of heart attacks all of a sudden? I feel like this is a bad idea. Am I right?
I mean, it depends. Do you want to die or like?
It's a terrible effing idea. I can't believe that they even thought about, like, what could we do?
You got to respect the balls on these people.
I guess.
You gotta. Like, we introduced this thing. We didn't tell you that there was any side effects. Turns out lots of cardiac side effects. So sorry, but great news for you. You know that, like, borderline poison that we put in your body that we didn't understand? We revamped it to address that issue. Like, well, are there going to be any other consequences? No reason to think so.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this sounds spectacular. We are now, this is Bancel. We are now in super exciting program where we inject mRNA into people's hearts after a heart attack to grow back new blood vessels and revascularize the heart.
Was it not killing people fast enough by what's
state
putting
of
in
the
their
art?
arm?
Yeah,
they got to go right for the heart this time.
Let's get him right in. Oh my God. Skip the middleman, they say. Let's go right to the point of. So it's mind-boggling that I actually had to read this out loud.
They can't get an EUA for this, right? Like, they have to actually go through and prove that this works, right?
I mean, I guess. I mean, Biden did reinvigorate the Emergency Act, even though he called the pandemic over for some reason. He's still, Trump's Executive Emergency Act is still in effect.
Listen, dementia's hard, okay? There's no reason to give the guy a hard time.
Yeah, we're gonna get that to the end. Holy moly!
Listen, I think it's hilarious in the most dark way possible that this is happening. And here's what's really troubling. I am of the opinion, based on all the evidence I have read, this is not a fact, this is just my opinion, that there is a 0% chance that any mRNA technology could ever clear through full approval process of the FDA. The technology is not there. It has not been there in 20 years. It's not there now, and it absolutely harms people, whether it's through the mRNA spike protein or through the lipid nanoparticles that they have to use to get the mRNA past your body's defense system. One way or another, there's too many toxic events. There's too many things that go wrong when they try to do this. They can never, ever, 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 ever get this through full approval of FDA. It can't happen. It's just they can't do it right now. Maybe in 20 years, but they're not close right now. My opinion, maybe I'm wrong. But let's assume I'm right for a minute. They need an EUA. What's the way you get an EUA?
You need a quote-unquote emergency, I guess.
So if you want to have an EUA for a heart attack cure, what do you need?
A lot of heart attacks. Oh, looks like they got it all figured out.
Man, this is wild.
All right. Okay, so anything more on COVID vaccines? I don't have anything else. It's all
the bodybuilder that you posted.
Oh,
on
I didn't.
Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can look up Doug Brignol, I think his name is. But man, what a bad quote.
Yeah, that's rough.
I mean, listen. So he got the 2 doses 18 months ago, and it's thought that he got a booster recently. Who knows? Like nothing is being confirmed. But apparently, this health nut, who is an avid non-steroid user, very healthy lifestyle guy, like guru, like fitness expert, like, hey, made a claim that I'm going to get the vaccine and you can use me as the judge. If I die, you guys are all right. If not, then go F yourself. I'm paraphrasing, but he's dead. So
you sounded a lot like Bill Gates when you just said that.
we sound like
he's dead. Like, listen, you don't know, but it's again, the vaccine seems to be the leading driver of coincidence. Like, 63-year-old, maybe the healthiest 63-year-old in the entire country, just unexpectedly died. Now, that does happen. Please don't misunderstand me. It absolutely does happen from time to time. But then you look at some of the other correlations of where a lot of these elite physical athletes are the ones having the worst heart problems post-vaccine.
Well, listen, all I know is every time one of these anti-vaxxers who said, I'm not getting the shot, whatever, and they died, they ended up on the front page of the news because they were trying to create, a scenario. This guy, crickets.
Well, yeah, I can't have that going against the narrative. The problem is that people keep finding out, and it'd be one thing if these vaccines actually worked. The problem is they don't.
Yeah, they don't work, and they're harmful. So we have a double whammy here. All right, so let's move on to some of the news of the week here. This is a little bit older. This is something I want to talk about last week, but it's kind of played out even further. So, again, headline: PayPal reverses plan to fine users $2,500 for misinformation after Daily Wire report. So this is I'm using the Daily Wire here on this article. A red-faced PayPal walked back a shocking new policy announcement that users who advanced misinformation could face fines of $2,500 per offense, saying it was all a mistake after Daily Wire called attention to the chilling scheme. So Daily Wire is a Ben Shapiro-run news outlet. They ran a story about how PayPal is going to fine PayPal users $2,500 for each offense of misinformation, which, as you pointed out, is basically just being wrong. So, like, anybody who could be wrong is basically subjected to a $2,500 fine, which is crazy to me. Now, they have reversed that after the uproar. Many thousands of people have closed their PayPal accounts in response to this, and probably deservingly so.
As they should.
And let me play this little clip from I think it's the Consumer Finance Review Board. Is that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau? Sorry. Let me play this clip from their director.
Still, the director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is keeping a close eye on developments.
I've never actually heard of a payment system thinking that they could fine someone for legal expression that their users are making.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, so that's the consumer. I think that's Elizabeth Warren's outfit, right? The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or whatever. But even that guy was like, "This seems a little crazy here to me." So, so maybe they'll investigate, and maybe that comment or some notification from this bureau basically alerted PayPal to their nonsense. I'm guessing PayPal exists for a little while. I don't expect there's such a entrenchment in the online payment industry that I don't see them going away anytime soon. But you know that there's competitors. I think Dan Bongino has something called Parallel Economy, which is a PayPal competitor. There are others. I expect them to kind of gain market share and PayPal to lose market share. To say that it was a bad move is probably an understatement, to say the least.
You think?
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know what ends up with PayPal, but I'm guessing they've lost the ability to be the king of online payments, and somebody else will eventually take their place. I hope.
I hope so too. This is horrible.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of an echo chamber are you living in where somebody brought up that idea and you're like, you know what? Yeah.
And the payment service provided is enacting this fine. That's what's mind-boggling. It's not like some legal ramification. It's literally somebody who's just making financial transactions. They're just facilitating transactions, and they seem that they have some moral platform they can stand on and decide who's misinforming people and fine them $2,500. It seems.
Where would the money go? Just to PayPal?
I think so. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know. I think they said they were going to try to do something with it, and I forgot what it was. But anyway, so regardless, they've backed up. They said it was a mistake, so they're no longer implementing this fine for misinformation. But hopefully it serves as a warning to some of these other companies who are trying to enforce misinformation, and they realize that they can't win that fight. So against a public who realizes that everybody's lying through their teeth.
I mean, good. I'm glad that they got caught. I'm glad that they got. I hope they go out of business. Genuinely.
Yeah. No, I am too.
Because this is horrible.
Yeah. So I guess it would have been probably better for me to go right into Elon Musk since he was the one of the founders of PayPal, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go into the latest version of Abolish the FBI. I have two versions. Last week or 2 weeks ago we had the what was it? I forgot the dude's name, but anyway, this week we have the Tony Bobolinsky and Christopher Steele edition of Abolish the FBI here. So let's pull this up here. Do I even have it? I'm sorry for folks who are dealing with this. I'm trying to find my. No, I don't even have it pulled up.
Oh, God help me. Before you go into that,
go ahead.
Breaking news from Disclosed TV. U.S. researchers at Boston University have developed a new lethal COVID mutant strain in a laboratory.
Why?
Boston University creates new COVID strain that has an 80% kill rate.
Seems bad.
This is making the people that operated Jurassic Park look like savants in comparison to the stupidity that we're seeing right now.
Yeah. I don't really have any comment on that. That's fun.
Terrible.
That's fun, but yeah. So let's do this. Let me pull up this here. Here it is.
Oh, man. That's horrifying.
John Durham investigating the Russian hoax stuff there. We've covered this investigation a couple times here. Let me read this headline. Durham witness. FBI offered Steele $1 million for proof of dossier claims, but he had none. So let's go back a little bit in history. Christopher Steele, British spy, hired by the Clinton campaign / Fusion GPS or whatever they are, to find dirt on Donald Trump. He comes up with a dossier that has since long been discredited as a bunch of nonsense, basically drunken conversations at a bar that he put into a document and said, hey, this is information that I have. The FBI offered him $1 million for the information.
No, not for the information. To verify the information.
To verify the information, right.
Just to verify. They would have given him $1 million just to be able to go on the record and say, you verified this and it's true. And he's like, no, I can't. For $1 million, he couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-boggling that the FBI, specifically the FBI, is willing to pay somebody to basically testify for information.
Listen, imagine you're in this position. All right, you just put together this nonsensical thing that was Oppo research, and it's all rumors and hearsay and everything else, and you know it, but you sold it to the political campaign, you made some money, you're happy. Cool. You're like, could be true. Who knows? And then the law enforcement agency that would be the one arresting you comes to you and like, listen, if you can verify this, look at me. If you can verify this, we'll give you $1 million. You're like, I can't. Like, $1 million? $1 million. Just come out and on the record say it's true. Like, but it's not. But the only entity that you could actually get in trouble with is the one trying to give you the $1 million to verify it. That's it. Like, holy crap, what world do we live in? This is crazy town.
Yeah. And so and this whole thing has been discredited months ago.
Hilarious.
And the fact that this is coming out now, I feel like is, it's like they drop stuff, randomly out there so that it can't all be accumulated into one big news story, obviously. So they spread this stuff out. But this is mind-boggling that the FBI be willing to pay this guy, which is clearly known to be a lying SOB, was even approached about getting $1 million.
I can't believe he didn't take the money.
Maybe he's got a sliver of integrity,
or
he knew that he was going to be dragged over the coals if not. So the other Abolish the FBI story I wanted to bring up was, did you know that Tony Bobulinski had a 5-hour interview with the FBI the day after his interview with Tucker Carlson, and our boy Tim Tebow, spelled the other way, the former FBI agent, held on to that testimony till this day? Like, they've done nothing. They've literally talked to Tony Bobulinski for 5 hours and have done nothing with that information. So why do we have an investigative bureau at the federal level while they're not investigating crimes of it's why are they exist? So this is back to the Abolish the FBI. If they're not here to do the things that they need to do, then why do we have them? And
they're here to hold hapless protesters in jail for 15 months without a trial for treason. That's why they're here.
Yeah, it's not a good thing. So
it's terrifying. It's utterly terrifying that this has been allowed to happen. It's utterly terrifying that people don't know that this has happened. That the FBI legitimately ran cover for a presidential candidate who then won the office, and they continue to run cover to avoid prosecuting his derelict of a son. And I know he's got a drug problem, and I'm supposed to feel bad for him. Screw him. Yeah. Sorry. At some point, you're just peddling influence and selling us out left, right, and center, and I don't have to feel bad for you that you happen to be also addicted to crack and hookers. That's a you problem. So if you did it in the privacy of your own home and it had no impact on the country, the regular people, I wouldn't care. But here's the reality, it didn't. And so now the FBI has evidence, has corroborating evidence, has witness testimony willing to testify on the record that says Joe Biden was absolutely profiting from these business deals. He was ownership. He is the big guy. At a bare minimum, Joe Biden has committed tax evasion if those claims are true. Is Tony Bobulinski not a legitimate witness? Is he not credible enough for you?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't believe that for a minute.
Unbelievably credible.
Did they offer Tony Bobulinski $1 million to corroborate the evidence that he's coming forward with? Because that would seem like the only fair thing to do. Is you should be offering Tony Bobulinski $1 million if he can corroborate his claims. Maybe if he put it in a dossier that we would get it that way. Huh? It's got to work, right? That's got to be the fair way.
Yeah.
Put it in a dossier, give him $1 million because so he can verify, because apparently the man's got
receipts. That's how they work. So you got to go through the right channels, apparently.
Like, if you're not blown away by this, I don't understand what it would take. Of the idea that the FBI is completely ignoring legitimate claims of crimes committed against by one candidate's inner circle and looking to bribe the accuser in another case to just try to get something on the other guy. Is there not enough on Donald Trump? Like, he can't be this good of a human being. I'm sorry. Like, if you can't be this clean. I don't believe it. And you had to go after him for Russian P tapes. Oh God.
Yeah, listen, I'm of the opinion the fact that they've investigated his dealings and activities for 5 years straight here now, and they haven't found anything is, to your point, mind-boggling.
Right.
Like,
I don't believe it.
Right.
I don't. Like, you're telling me there's not any tax evasion in there anywhere, you liars. There has got to be something in there.
Yeah, it's a question of whether or not they can get him on something that he did without bringing down the whole rest of the crew. So, all right.
Oh, well.
All right, let's switch to your boy Elon Musk. He's in the news all over the place the last
my guy can't stay out of the news.
Yeah. We're not even going to talk about the whole Twitter thing yet, because there's just too much other stuff going on right now.
Fine.
But clearly he tried to re-buy back Twitter and not buy back there, and then Twitter was like, no, we're not going to do this. So that whole thing is, I don't even know what chapter we're on for the Musk versus Twitter, somewhere in the hundreds, and I think there's another 100 chapters left. But what I want to talk about is Elon Musk versus the world / versus Ukraine, Starlink, all that good stuff, right? So as we know, maybe I have that. Do I have that? Nope, I don't have that pulled up. But so we all know Elon Musk, or no, we don't all know, but if you don't know, Elon Musk put out a tweet basically offering a peace deal, if you will, right?
Yep.
Caught hell. specifically caught hell from the group of people with the Ukraine flags in their profile pictures, including one member of the Ukraine parliament, I think it was, who basically told Elon to F off, right?
No, not basically, did. Direct quote.
F off. So let's go to fast forward to, I don't know what date is this, I don't see it here, but read this headline. Elon Musk says he's just following Ukraine's suggestions to F off by asking Pentagon to fund Starlink. So Elon had said that he was basically funding Starlink through SpaceX, basically, or through Starlink at $20 million a day, I think it was.
I thought it was a month.
A month, either way. A lot of money, right? So he has been funding this himself, and after the Ukraine legislator told him to F off, he basically said, okay, I think the Pentagon should be paying for this.
No problem. I'll go F off. Yeah, so when Russia first invaded Ukraine, somebody made the request and said, can we get Starlink over there to make sure they have communications? And he went to Twitter and said, done, and sent it. And he's been paying for it ever since. So now he's looking at the battlefield, for lack of a better word, and is obviously somewhat concerned about the prospect of nuclear war. And
as we all should be.
Right. And saying, hey, wait. There's got to be a way to get to peace. There's got to be. Like, we can't keep doing this. Like, this is crazy. People are dying. There's got to be. How do we get to peace? And so he came out with what would be in normal times with, reasonable human beings, a perfectly reasonable proposal. Now, it came from him, and he's nobody in this, so we don't have to listen to him. But it shouldn't be a ridiculous idea of like, hey, guys, I know you want to believe Ukraine's winning this war. They're not. Sorry. It's just the reality of the world. And keep in mind the people telling you that Ukraine winning are the same ones that were telling you that we were winning in Afghanistan for 20 years. So maybe don't buy in wholesale to everything they say. And he got so roundly lambasted and called a Russian stooge, a Putin apologist, et cetera, okay. Great. So the fact that he has been single-handedly the reason that the Ukrainian army has been able to communicate with each other over the last 9 months, that doesn't weigh in on your factorization at all. You're sure he's just pro-Russia. Because I'm pretty sure if he was actually just pro-Russia, he would have not sent Starlink to begin with,
right,
and said good luck. I don't know. That would have seemed like if I was trying to support the enemy, I probably wouldn't be giving you all the communication for free.
Yeah, I mean, he's the lifeblood of the whole operation there. They could not operate with any kind of success without him. So listen, I know everybody keeps hearing, and they did have a great counteroffensive. It was a brilliant maneuver, and they came around and they did, but it cost them. They can't afford to lose people at the rate they're losing people. That's the battle strategy that is flawed. They don't have the people to spare. They cannot go into a battle and lose 40% to casualties. They just can't do it. It's not a sustainable model for long-term success, whereas Russia can. Yeah. Russian military tactic is usually not force preservation. That's not the priority, historically speaking. And so after all this, the aftermath, other than just, getting ratioed on Twitter, which he did, Elon Musk is under federal investigation for merger conduct, Twitter tells judge. So Twitter says here, I'll read the subheadline. Musk refuses to produce communications with SEC and FTC. Twitter tells court. So Twitter has said that, Elon Musk is doing some stuff he shouldn't be doing, and now is under federal investigation shortly after he decided to take up Ukraine on their F-off suggestion and ask the Pentagon for millions. All of a sudden, he literally is under investigation for the Twitter thing. Breaking news, Mr. Hussong. Let me read from Elon's Twitter today. Is it today? No. This is from the 15th. Sorry.
You're forgiven.
This is Elon Musk. The hell with it. Even though Starlink is still losing money and other companies are getting billions of taxpayer dollars, we'll just keep funding Ukraine government for free. So apparently he has come off his assertion that he was going to require Pentagon to or somebody to fund Starlink and says he's going to do it. Do we think that there's any correlation / causation with the Starlink or disabling Starlink or asking for funding from Starlink and then the investigation and then to Elon basically coming off of that position? It seemed to be a very concise timeline where a bunch of things happen in a row where Elon's maybe like, all right, I don't want to go through an SEC investigation or whatever. I'm just going to, fine, whatever. I'll just keep Starlink up, whatever. So I don't know that any of it's related. It seems pretty convenient that all these things happened in the timeline that they happened by. So I don't know what happens in Ukraine. I don't know what happens with Starlink in Ukraine. I don't know what happens with Elon Musk versus Twitter versus the world versus whatever. But I don't think he's going away. I think he's going to kind of stay in the middle of it. I mean, listen, he doesn't have any, dog in the fight, if you will, that we know of anyway. And let's dismiss the idea that, there was this thought that, or at least the assertion that Elon had talked to Vladimir Putin or some Russian officials before he made that peace offering on Twitter, which he denies. So who knows? But that was a part of the thing for a while.
I just remembered he also challenged Vladimir Putin to hand-to-hand combat for Ukraine when the war first broke. I forgot all about that. He wanted to do like a trial by combat for Ukraine, him versus.
I would see some
Vladimir
jousting.
Putin.
That'd be fun.
Oh God! If only we could settle world events that way.
Jousting,
and just like go ahead and combat. Two guys, go.
Just slap him with a glove and get it on.
Let's go. Stop sending the rest of us to fight. You guys do it.
So I don't know where this all goes, but it leads us into our next story, which, I can't believe we're talking about the potential World War III / nuclear war / whatever on the show. That's not really kind of why I wanted the show to go.
No.
2 years in. But let's start with what we talked about on the last show. And I think I sent you this, or at least some version of this headline. Jeffrey Sachs, rest of the world, this is his quote, rest of the world thinks the U.S. probably sabotaged the Nord Stream pipeline, but doesn't show up in our media, right? So his assertion is that the world basically realizes that the U.S. did it. They had the most to gain. They had the resources to pull it off, and nobody's covering it here in our media. But the world media, it's long thought that the U.S. did this. I mean, listen, I think it was a Poland thank the U.S. on Twitter right after it happened. So he had to delete that tweet because, cat's out of the bag at that point. So we talked about the Nord Stream pipeline 2 weeks ago and the possibility of U.S. being one of the suspects in the bombing. Nothing has happened since then, since that discussion, to make me think otherwise, that they had the most to gain, they had the resources to do it, and it makes most sense for them to have pulled it off. So at least in conjunction with some other NATO entity, who knows? But Jeffrey Sachs, who is, and I've said this to you, a mainstream analyst, like he's on MSNBC, NBC, like he is, he's the same guy, and if we remember, is also the one who basically outed the lab leak theory. Mm-hmm. So he's got two conspiracies on his belt now, has been basically removed from these now national talk shows. He has not been invited back since this assertion. So to my point earlier, I didn't know how he was allowed onto these news segments to make these assertions. Well, they probably didn't know he was going to do that, I think, but they wouldn't have put him on because now he's no longer allowed back on. So one aspect of this, obviously, if in fact U.S. did blow up the Nord Stream pipeline, let's leave Germany out of this for a second because they obviously are hurt by this as all. But Russia, I can't imagine, if in fact Russia knows they didn't do it, and that somebody else had to do it, and it was an attempt to get at Russia. Russia immediately responded with attacks all over Ukraine, including almost to the western border. Mm-hmm. So they reacted. And now we have, the threat of nuclear arsenals being used by all sides.
Yep.
And then to pile on that, we had this, let me read another headline, which is, again, just a geopolitical, it's a economic / supply chain / World War III headline. Biden's chip controls may force Chinese Americans working in China's semiconductor firms to choose between their citizenship or their job. So this is dated October 13th. I don't have that thread pulled up that you sent me, and maybe I should. I think it was Jordan Schrader, I think his name was.
I believe that's right, but I'll find it.
He lays out he copied this from a Chinese CEO and translated it and resubmitted this thread, basically outlining how U.S. workers for these Chinese semiconductor factories basically all stopped working almost overnight immediately.
Yeah, I'll just read it. It'll take about 90 seconds to get through this, but the U.S. government's new export controls are wreaking havoc on China's chip industry. New rules around, quote, U.S. persons, end quote, are driving an industry-wide decapitation. The following is a translation of a thread posted earlier in the week by somebody else. Lots of people don't know what happened yesterday. To put it simply, Biden has forced all Americans working in China to pick between quitting their jobs and losing American citizenship. Every American executive and engineer working in China's semiconductor manufacturing industry resigned yesterday, paralyzing Chinese manufacturing overnight. One round of sanctions from Biden did more damage than all 4 years of performative sanctioning under Trump. Although American semiconductor exporters had to apply for licenses during the Trump years, licenses were approved within a month. With the new Biden sanctions, all American suppliers of IP blocks, components, and services departed overnight, thus cutting off all service to China. Long story short, every advanced node semiconductor company is currently facing comprehensive supply cutoff, resignations from all American staff, and immediate operations paralysis. This is what annihilation looks like. China's semiconductor manufacturing industry was reduced to zero overnight. Complete collapse, no chance of survival. Why hasn't the Chinese media reported on this? I don't know. The only possible explanation is that this major story and its future ramifications will bring severe damage to the supposedly, quote, continuously flourishing, end quote, semiconductor industry and Chinese national security as a whole. The level of embarrassment is on par with Pelosi's Taiwan visit. Many people don't understand why this is annihilation. ASML has stopped providing services and support to mainland China.
So, this leads me to Taiwan. Let me read a headline. Taiwan says China looking at Ukraine war to develop hybrid strategies. So, Taiwan has their own semiconductor factories, I believe. I'm guessing they're not part of the regulation, and therefore there would be an competition between Taiwan and China. I could see China picking at Taiwan's semiconductor industry as well, and therefore creating a scenario that we all do not want, which is a war with China. And since the last few months, seemingly they have lined up, I think China and Russia would be on the same page, and I feel like some of these other major countries would join as well, would be on that side as well. Now, the last thing we want is a world war, a nuclear war, all this stuff. But it's never been more of a reality in my lifetime than it is right now, which is scary as all hell. And I don't see the path backwards, right? So like everything seems to be escalating, and most of the escalation seems to be done on our part through Joe Biden and his U.S. administration here. Can we avoid, and just to point out, Trump has come out and other people have come out and tried to say, hey, we need to find some peace solutions here as opposed to fighting a nuclear war. So give him credit for that. Whether or not he actually believes that and has the ability to implement an agreement to get us de-escalated from this scenario, I don't know. But at least he's talking about peace. I don't know how this ends. I want to be optimistic and say that cooler heads will prevail. I just don't see it. It's scary.
It's not all the escalation is coming a lot from America, but it's not only America. I mean, Russia took over parts of Ukraine and then held, quote, free elections within those provinces. That those elections shockingly determined that they wanted to be a part of Russia and no longer part of Ukraine. And therefore, under Vladimir Putin's rule, those are now Russia. And Russia has a policy where the only use of nuclear weapon would be if mainland Russia is attacked. So now he considers those to be mainland Russia. So any fighting in the Ukraine or in these provinces, the Donbass, Crimea, and one or two others that I'm not as familiar with, would mean that that's an attack on Russian sovereignty at that point. And therefore, that would permit, maybe not mandate, but it would permit the use of nuclear weapons to defend it, which is a horrifying escalation from that side. Now, the escalation on this side is if you have now decimated China's economy, and China is, for those of you who, I don't know, this is my opinion again, it's not a stated fact. China is essentially an economic paper tiger. It is held together by a string, by lies, and by coercion of the government. Of the housing sector is an absolute shambles, ready to collapse. This is only going to force that issue even more, and they can't function. So, like, we're putting all the pressure on them to make war a very viable option as a way out of what they have right now. Yeah. It's amazing to me that Anthony Blinken, the United States Secretary of State, has not one time gone to talk to his counterpart in Russia and just said, "Hey, what will it take for this to end? What are you looking for?"
Which means they don't want it to end, right?
Correct. That's my opinion. I don't think they want it to end.
I'm with you.
So the problem is this: as Americans, it's like we tend to view war as the only acceptable outcome is total victory and total defeat of the enemy. But that's not historically accurate. That's not the way most wars are ever settled. Yes, we had the unconditional surrender at the end of World War II. Vietnam didn't end that way. Cambodia didn't end that way. Iraq certainly didn't end that way. Afghanistan obviously didn't end that way. Most wars don't end that way. There's concessions given on both sides, and you come to some type of conclusion. That's never been more important than in a time of nuclear war. Now, do I think Russia was justified in invading Ukraine? No, of course not. But the idea that it was wholly unprovoked is also false. There was definitely provocations, many of them at our hands, that ultimately led to this happening. I still think it was wrong, but it's never as simple and cut and dry as, well, they just decided to take over. And for some reason, as Americans, I'm going to blame our education system for this. I love it when they say...
Easy target.
I know. Oh, well, those who don't learn from history are bound to repeat it. Just think of Neville Chamberlain trying to appease Hitler. Like, all right, I get it. And I don't even disagree. But there's more history to learn from than that. Okay? That is not the pinnacle and epitome of every bit of history that we should have learned from over the last thousands of years of watching warfare. If there's anything that we have pretty firmly learned from the current war in Ukraine, it's that the Russian military is not at all equipped to take over anything. All right? Let's just start there. Obviously, I still maintain my position of in enough time they're going to win. It's just a matter of when. But the idea that they are this susceptible to so many turnabouts is showing their military is not equipped. This is not the Nazis of the 1930s, all right? They're not equipped to do this. It's not a military society. They have no non-commissioned officer corps in their military. They're not going to be able to take over anything. So let's not worry about that because that seems preposterous. And I think, especially if you're of the opinion that Ukraine is winning, then why in the world are you worried about Russia taking over anything, of starting a global conquest through this action? I'm also well aware that the Ukrainian government has done some horrific things in these regions to the Russian-speaking civilians that live there, like god-awful, horrific things.
And that's been going on since the revolution there.
Right. So I don't know what to make of that. I also know that prior to this year, it was widely understood, accepted, and acknowledged that the Ukraine was the most corrupt government in all of Europe. This wasn't even a point of discussion. It was just known. It was accepted. Now you're not allowed to say that anymore. Now that can't possibly be true. And how dare you besmirch these glorious defenders of the homeland? I'm like, all right, fine. So my opinion would be is if we could get out of this entire situation simply by acknowledging that Russia now possesses the Donbass and Crimea and the area just north of Crimea so they could supply fresh water, and then exchange for that, Russia's going to pull all of its troops out and stop this war right now. And the other exchange is that the Ukraine will not be allowed to join NATO ever, or for 50 years or something. I don't know. But if we could do that and take the prospect for nuclear war off the table, I'm personally of the opinion that would be worth it. I don't know where the Donbass region is in Ukraine. I didn't know prior to a few months ago. So the idea that I would risk American involvement in a war and escalating this situation into a global world war and or nuclear war over boundary lines on a map is not in my reality right now. I'm sorry. And I don't worry about that setting the precedent that Russia's going to take over everything. Russia's not going to take over anything. I think we've pretty firmly established they are at best an effective defensive force. They are not an offensive force, and they have nowhere near the weaponry needed to take us on head-to-head under any circumstances, short of nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
So it's why don't we just stop making it worse? That's my only. That's what I don't understand.
I'm totally with you. And like I said, now I'm just to the point where it's like I don't think they want it to get better. I think they want endless war. Do they want nuclear war? I hope they do not want that.
No, I think they want a proxy war. I think that they're ready to fight to the last Ukrainian. The American government is ready to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian civilian. And this is where I freely acknowledge that I am incredibly biased because of my own prior service and the events surrounding that. But I am not going to ask any civilian to die for these sociopaths any longer. I'm just not going to. I don't have it in me. I'm watching what's happening at the top levels, and the utter indifference to human life, human suffering, and everything else is just, I can't get there anymore. I don't think Russia should be taking this over, but the reality is they already took over Crimea 8 years ago. This isn't a new development. And so now we could have gotten out of this with just that. If we just would have met with them in March and said, whoa. All right, let's calm down here. What, you want that area because you can no longer get fresh water to your people in Crimea? Okay, fine. You can have that, but now you're going to pay some reparations to the Ukraine, and Zelensky can go put all that in his offshore accounts that we know he has. It's not a conspiracy theory, guys. He's had them for years. So he can go get his, undue wealth and get more Vanity Fair shoots in the middle of a war zone, because that's so damn common. We could have gotten out. But instead, and this is what was not being reported, is everybody's trying to tell me that Russia's getting their butts kicked. But if you looked at what was going on, Russia was taking over huge swaths of the country. So if they keep taking it over and they're like, listen, let us know when you're ready to negotiate for peace, and they're like, screw you, we're going to fight forever. Like, okay. And they just keep winning. Now, again, Ukraine did a nice counteroffensive, and they took back a lot of the land. They didn't take back the stuff that really matters.
Yeah, I was going to say, that part was almost, I would say, given to them by Russia, but it was not being defensed like other parts.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. And so they took it over, and they still took too many casualties taking it back. This is not a long-term strategy, and that's what I mean. The American intelligence agencies are on the ground over there, and they're giving them intel on where to bomb, where to strike. The Nord Stream 2 just happens to blow up. My favorite was I think it was the Atlantic that did a piece. I could be wrong on that, don't quote me, saying that it was entirely plausible that it was just an accident, that there's all these munitions down there from World War II, and they just went off. And they shouldn't assign to malice that which could be ascribed to bad luck. And so somebody commented on it so you think 70-year-old munitions at the bottom of the ocean bombed both pipes simultaneously. Brilliant. So either way, the idea that we seem to be so casual talking about nuclear war, the prospect for nuclear war, is terrifying to me. Like, the tough talk from people that have never fought in a war will always be the funniest thing in the world to me, of like, well, we got to put troops on the ground. Like, who? Who's the troops? You?
Your kids?
Are you ready to go fight and die for this? Because I'm not. And if I'm not asking anybody else to. It's that simple. This is not my fight. And therefore, I won't, you're not getting my kids, you're not getting me. I'll talk anybody who asks my opinion. I would try to talk you out of doing this, because this is insanity. Here's a crazy idea. Maybe we don't go die so that we can benefit the most corrupt government in all of Europe. I don't know. Maybe it's their responsibility to keep their civilians safe. Maybe they could do more to keep their people safe. Maybe they didn't need to flirt openly about joining NATO. Maybe there was stuff they could have done that would have prevented this, and yes, some of it would have been a concession. But welcome to warfare.
Pretty sure they got some bad advice from Big Brother Biden.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Maybe that was Hunter's real job.
Yeah.
Military strategist for $88,000 a month because he has prior military service. But it's the idea that you can talk so casually and not accept the fact that if we go get engaged, you are a whisper away from a nuclear war at that point. And worst case scenario is you lose a nuclear war to Russia.
Everybody loses a nuclear war.
The second worst outcome is you win a nuclear war against Russia. Like, that's the second worst outcome that you could possibly have from all of this. And it's all this tough talk and all this bravado from a bunch of people that have access to bunkers. Like, screw the rest of us. They got like these, what are the Moabs or whatever, the massive
deep underground bases.
Thank you. Sure.
Dumbs.
I can't get here. And you want to, I love the tough talk. Oh, like, well, the only thing Vladimir Putin understands is this, and he's going crazy. Like, Vladimir Putin is an entire career where he has been the most risk-averse leader in the history of the entire continent. It's never been about taking big gambles. So I'm having a hard time getting there. And it would be nice if your enemy was always an idiot. It would be really nice if stupidity was always their downfall. But maybe at some point we can acknowledge Vladimir Putin's not a stupid human being. All right? He's just not. Neither is whoever is in charge of America right now, clearly.
Well,
I don't know who it is.
right. Yeah,
I mean, the figurehead's a moron, but whoever's actually running the place is smart because you are getting this in. Somehow you got the Ukrainian people to go fight a proxy war against Russia over two regions that they probably don't want anyway.
yeah. Who knows?
You want to know why they want Crimea? Because there's a massive supply of liquid natural gas under the ocean. I think it's the Black Sea right there that is right off the coast of Crimea. Coincidentally, it's why Russia took it over 8 years ago. And as an international community, we all went, hey. Okay. That ship sailed. Sorry, folks. If we were going to fight that when we had to do it 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Don't blame me.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm 50, so I wasn't around for any of this, I was barely aware during the Cold War or whatever. I was not I wasn't old enough to acknowledge any of that stuff, what was going on then, and who knows what was actually going on then. But like, it's never been closer to, global annihilation than we are basically right now, which is scary.
You got to appreciate a species so smart we figured out how to destroy ourselves.
Yeah. Well, we got to do it before the sun does it. So, all right. We covered a lot, Mr. Hussong.
And under 2 hours?
And under 2 hours, barely.
Thanks for sticking with us if you made it all the way through.
Yeah, if you made it all the way through, you are you should get one of those badges. They say badge fan, or whatever they are on social media.
Let's get some merch.
Yeah, I got one right here.
There it is.
All right. Let's try to leave the folks with something more pleasant than World War III and Thailand annihilation. So the stage is yours, Mr. Hussong. Enlighten the folks.
No pressure. There's still a lot of off-ramps. There's still a lot of ways that this does not have to happen. And the reason I'm trying to point this out now and the reason we are discussing this now is because we have to have these conversations and there has to be push from people before there are no off-ramps. Because you cannot leave this situation and just trust. I don't think most people recognize how close we came to nuclear war during the Bay of Pigs, during the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it was John F. Kennedy looking at somebody and being like, you're a fucking nut job. No, because they wanted him to launch. And it was a commander of a Russian sub that got an order to launch a missile and went, no, I'm not doing it. Like, those two people are the only reason we didn't already have a nuclear war. So the idea that these nut jobs that are in charge won't do it, please don't believe that for a second. They absolutely will. Vladimir Putin, he's already laid out the case for when he will use it. There is a case which they will do it, and we can't stop poking to see if he's being real or not. And that's what makes no sense to me of why in the world are we doing this? All right? I got bad news for you. Russia is going to walk away with more of this than Ukraine is because they're winning. And that's what happens when you win wars. You set the terms. If we would have negotiated early on, we could have done it. And so this goes to that Chinese proverb. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. So we've got to start doing something now to prevent this. And there are plenty of off-roads. There's plenty of ways out of this. But I'm just going to ask, for everybody out there with the Ukrainian flag in the profile or whatever else, literally do some soul searching and figure out how committed you actually are to this cause. Because I am not asking anybody to go fight or die for this group of kleptocrats that run Ukraine right now. Sorry, guys, it ain't happening. Yeah. So, in the meantime, see your neighbors, get off the internet, go talk to actual real people.
Touch some grass,
get some fresh air every day, and literally go talk to people that are around you. You'll find that most people are good. I don't know if they're good, but they're tolerable. Like they're not like the idiots online.
Yeah. I mean, we all turn idiots online because there's no personal interaction with it, right? So like you have a level of safety and arrogance allowed to bake into your comments there, and I'm guilty of that as well. But I don't know.
As everyone is.
Yeah. I guess that's my point, is if you get offline and talk to people in real life, as I do, I'm sure most of the people I talk to in real life are not on the same political spectrum as I am. So
I don't think most people
no.
are.
So I would be a hermit if I limited my conversations to people who agreed with me, and how boring is that anyway? So
I agree.
Yeah, go touch grass, talk to people in real life, and you'll be better off for it. So, and let's all be anti-war for once. I mean, I wish the anti-war left would come back. Did you see AOC getting shouted down in one of her, I don't know, town halls or whatever? And a couple people basically just said, you know, what are you talking about? You're talking about things that don't matter when we're approaching nuclear war. Right. Where are you?
You are sending weapons to Nazis in Ukraine, and you want us to listen to you about this? You joined to be different. You were supposed to be the opposing force, and you sold us out.
Yeah, she's a hack. So, all right.
You'll love to see it.
All right, so Monday Night Football tonight.
Yeah, who do we got? God bless, the Broncos got another primetime game.
Russ, they love put Russ on TV. So
they're so unwatchable at this point.
So.
Oh, and then playing the Chargers. Chargers are fun.
And we got the Yankees game tonight. So a couple things to watch, and then everybody can soak in the NBA.
About time.
All right, folks. We did make it under hour and 45. Still under 2 hours. We do thank you for keeping with us here for the extended version of Sports Clicks and Politics. We will be back here next Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern for episode 113. Until then, I am Shawn Hannon, and for Ben Hussong, we thank you for tuning in. Please like and share the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us get this out. And hopefully next week we will also be multi-streaming back again. Try to work out those bugs so that we can reach more people. So on that note, we thank you all for tuning in to episode 112.